Hi, welcome to 4-Minute Lecture. My name is Anna Curtis and I am a visiting professor in the Legal Studies program, which is housed in the Sociology department. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the way technology and law work together, right? So as the legal system has to respond to technological changes, you can see significant reactions in the larger culture. It can change, it can really redirect the overall direction of a society, right? So we can think of things like learning how to build fire, or make steel, or penicillin, or ships. The wheel was a big one, right? That's a good wheel. Also the internet, right? Yay, internet. Today, however, what I want to do is talk about birth control, right? So that's what we're talking about today. Close your eyes, or don't close them, whatever. Get your little imagination feelers going, and imagine for a moment that you can't buy condoms anywhere in the US at all. Imagine that your doctor will not prescribe birth control in any of its forms to you. You can smuggle them over the border, driving through the Canadian border, sweating bullets. You can order them off the internet if you can find the right source. But if you get caught doing either of those things, you'll be fined and receive a jail sentence. So a year or two, right? But like a real sentence. The point is, birth control is illegal in all of its forms. And just to sort of switch things up a little bit, imagine that if you engaged in premarital sex that can result in pregnancy. We'll draw on a few of my favorite gender stereotypes about men. You have the power of rationality and emotional control, and if you just can't resist the urge to get your dick wet, we have DNA tests for you. Here's a baby, right? Good luck with that. Also, we're going to kick you out of school. Also, we're going to judge you and call you names, and generally suggest that you're a failure as a man, right? It'll be fun. Now, some of you may be thinking, that's ridiculous, that will never happen, why are you making me imagine this? But you don't have to go that far back in American history to see one or more of such instances in place, right? Though usually it's the ladies who got that second half of that little imaginary activity. But actually, access to birth control in the United States has long been difficult. It has only been recently that we've had increased access to birth control, and in a big part that is related to technological breakthroughs around the pill in particular, right? Condoms have been legal since the 1920s, but also difficult to access. In the late 1800s, we passed a series of laws, both at the state level and at the federal, called the Comstock Laws, which made providing birth control or educational information over the internet, fancy my modern brain here, via the mail as obscene, like pornography obscene. And so you could in fact be arrested and go to jail if you provided or purchased birth control through the US Postal Service. Now, those laws stay on the book until 1972 and really affect our ability to access contraceptives, though the last person who's found guilty under these laws happens in 1933. But it's not until Eisenstadt v. Baird in Massachusetts in 1972 that the last of those laws are sort of swept off the books. So actually, access to birth control has been historically quite difficult. Well into the 1980s, single moms could expect to be kicked out of high school and receive a fair amount of social stigma as a result of this activity that they engaged in. And so it is often the case that we underlook or overlook how much effect birth control has on our day-to-day life. And the law certainly has had to react to the changes in the technology. So first, the birth control pill did not start the sexual revolution of the 1960s. It just made it way less likely that you'd get pregnant. People have been fucking each other's brains out probably since the dawn of the human species, right? We don't have written records for that, so that's sort of a guess, but I'm just assuming based on our commitment to sex that, people have the sex. It does, however, mean that you can you have a fairly high likelihood that you're not going to get pregnant. Which has an entire ripple effect in terms of gender relations in the United States. Clearly, the big winners in this technology are straight women, right? Way easier to control your fertility. makes it possible to do long-term career planning, changes expectations out of relationships, but straight men also, quite literally sometimes, get to come along for the ride, and that sort of really changes heterosexual relationships in a significant way. So for example, in 1950 the average age for a woman or a man was 20 and 23. So ladies, you would probably marry over the course of your college career, or possibly not even go to college. Gentlemen, you would be looking at a marriage shortly after you graduate, or probably no later than 25. Now clearly there are always class differences, and wealthy people tend to marry a little later, but you get my drift. We have now jumped from 25 for women to 27 for men. So the average US woman spends 8 years sexually active before she marries, and the average male 10, which is a significant change. So birth control allows us to more effectively separate sexual pleasure from reproduction, and decreases the links between sex and marriage, right? Which then has a ripple effect. So for example, with the decreased pressure for marriage, more people who identify or experience their sexual preferences, gay and lesbian men, LGBTQ community, can sort of blend more easily because fewer people are marrying, and it creates a sort of point of commonality between heterosexual couples and homosexual couples, in which the emphasis is on sexual attraction and intense romantic love, which started before the pill but is a fairly recent phenomenon. Like when the family operated as an economic unit in farms, for example, totally different set of requirements about what constituted a healthy marriage. So, my point here is twofold. One, you can see the way the law responds and cultural norms respond to technology, right? They're buddies. They're like, hey, let's have a little party. Two, birth control is fucking awesome, right? That's awesome. So if you haven't thought about that, ruminate on that. If you have thought about that, just revisit it, because, awesome thing. Technology in our lives improving, yay. So that's me, and make good decisions.